How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Game Week 31 team selection as we finalize our final wildcard draft. Going to give a little bit of a shout out here to the deadline stream that we'll be doing tomorrow night. Just stay tuned for that announcement. I'll probably be doing it less than 30 minutes before the deadline, so we get as much time as possible to finalize those wildcard decisions. In this video, we'll also be taking a look at the Game Week 30 team review and how our squad got on in Game Week 30 before we turn our attention to two drafts that I have selected. Right at the end of this video, I'll also be showing you guys my updated team just for those price rises that hopefully will be happening tonight and tomorrow so that we can make the most of this wild card in terms of our team value. So that's something you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So going over a quick review of Game Week 30, it was a pretty average game week to be honest. We did manage to get a nice little green arrow, but it wasn't the biggest green arrow in the world. I think it was about 5k places, so we're currently sitting just above that 42k mark with a score of 63 points. So in terms of the score, it was a relatively good score. However, most of the points did come from our captain. We had one or two differentials here and there, but overall it was a little bit of a disappointing week for our defense, which I'm going to start off with. So starting off in goal, we've got Forster with 2 points here. I was really happy to see that he was going to start against Burnley, but then he goes and concedes a penalty in the first 10 minutes, and it was straight down the middle. So I was just kind of hoping for maybe Forster to stay down the middle, then he would have had a lovely save point there, but I still don't think he would have kept a clean sheet because Burnley actually played quite well from an attacking point of view. Maybe Southampton are quite bad from a defensive point of view, which I think is a little bit more viable because throughout this FPL season they've actually been quite tragic defensively, especially recently. But what I'm hoping for is that Forster continues to play, as he is only 4.0 million, so it'll be nice to have a second keeper that cheap that will play the occasional game. But I think the more realistic approach is that McCarthy and Forster probably will rotate from now to the end of the season, as I think McCarthy also just signed a new contract, or they're trying to get him to sign a new contract or something like that. So I think there will be some minutes for McCarthy from now to the end of the season, but hopefully Forster plays the easiest fixtures. But the defense continued to disappoint, especially in that back line there. Alonso, Dallas, and Lucas Digne. Just think of the fixtures. Think back to the fixtures that all these players did have. I mean, Lucas Digne, Everton played Crystal Palace. We had Alonso versus West Bromwich Albion, and then we had Dallas against Sheffield United. I could have at least predicted a clean sheet from one of my defenders, but no, what goes and happens? 1, 2, 3, that's the only points that these managed to score. So Alonso had that assist quite early on into Chelsea's game. Actually was a free kick that came off the right hand post, which was then knocked in. I think it was Pulisic that knocked it in. He also had some other chances for an assist. The Timo Werner assist, Alonso actually played the ball across to him, and then he decided not to shoot, played the ball to Mason Mount. In the end of things, you got to look at it as they did end up scoring, so probably was the right decision. But then they also got a red card to Thiago Silva. I think it was in the first half. So Christensen managed to come off the bench there. I think they rotated one of the other midfielders, so they actually still did have a full backline intact, but they still conceded 5 goals. So maybe a lot of question marks around that whole Chelsea defense, and it might not be as solid as we're thinking, but I still think that Alonso from an attacking point of view could still provide some more points in the upcoming game weeks. Lucas Digne, Everton conceded in, I think it was the 88th minute to Crystal Palace, so quite unlucky there to be honest, but I think that they could have won this game quite a lot more, and maybe Lucas Digne would have got another attacking return. Then you also gone to Dallas, who conceded to Sheffield United, one of the worst attacks in the Premier at the moment, but Leeds have one of the worst defenses in the Premier League, so I guess you kind of could see it coming. A little bit annoyed maybe they didn't get an attacking return. He did start out of position, which is always going to be welcomed for Dallas and a defender, but unfortunately it was just the 2 points that he managed to return. Going on to the midfield, a little bit more excitement here, not from the Spurs assets. Son and Bell both with a 1-point appearance. Son came on at half time, so in the 45 minutes that he did play, didn't manage to get any returns, and then also Bale came off with about 5 minutes to spare, and he didn't manage to get anything in that one. But Rafinha and Lingard managed to return. I think Jesse Lingard basically saved our game week in Game Week 30 with those lovely 12 points. Antonio managing to come off injured quite early on in that first half, but Lingard still wasn't affected, managed to get a goal and an assist and some bonus points to boot. So also Rafinha, I think he just got the 1 assist with no bonus points there, so if you did manage to go for the captain on him, was a little bit unlucky. Main reason for that is that Harry Kane got 2 goals in the first half, I think, and he got a nice return there of 13 points. So the double that to 26, and you can now understand why I said most of the points were actually returned from our captain and not the rest of our squad. And then Bamford contributing just 2 points there against Sheffield United. A little bit disappointed with that because I think that he could have got a lot more from that. But then also with Ollie Watkins returning a goal finally, it was another 2-pointer from Ollie Watkins. With Jack Grealish still out, it looks like Jack Grealish will be out for the foreseeable future. picking up another injury on the weekend in training. So it looks like it's kind of been a repeat of the injury that he had previously. So I don't know how many weeks or games he's going to be out for, but maybe if you're an Ollie Watkins owner, just keep your eyes on that, because that news might cause you to take out Ollie Watkins. On the bench, we also had Gundogan, and that was the actual thing about this game week, which is quite lucky, is that Gundogan didn't play, so I got Lingard off the bench. I mean, imagine if Gundogan came off for a 1-minute appearance, and then I would have had Lingard's points on the bench. But then also the rest of the players, we've got Soufal here that got an assist for West Ham. Then we also have Diaz, who managed to keep a clean sheet against Leicester. He did play, and that defense looks rock solid from Man City's point of view currently. So I really would like that their defense didn't have too much rotation, but unfortunately with the wild card, I don't know if we're going to be taking a punt on a Man City defender. Just because of the Champions League and all the cup competitions they're currently in, I think that Diaz might get rotated in the Prem, because Man City have basically wrapped up the Premier League title for this FPL season. But that's enough of Game Week 30. Now let's move on to the transfer plan. So we're not going to have a transfer plan for this week, because obviously we are using the wild card. So we have activated the wild card. If you guys do follow me on Twitter, you would have known that I think on about Saturday or Sunday I activated the wild card. So maybe a little bit of a premature activation there, but the thing is, I wanted to catch some price rises, and I really was confident of wildcarding now because of these fixture swings. Some people are holding it for the double game weeks coming up in the future, and that could be your strategy, and that's perfectly fine. But for my own FPL squad, and if you guys do have a similar squad to me with 3 Leeds players, for example, a couple of Aston Villa options, their fixtures turn for the worst right now. So I want to get onto some teams that are a little bit more differential as we do push for that top 10k. So now let's get on to the true drafts. And the first draft is going to be more of a safe draft, and the second draft is going to be more of a differential draft that I'm kind of leaning towards a little bit. And then finally we're going to wrap it up with the current team to catch those price rises and those price drops hopefully tonight. So this is the first draft that I managed to come up with, and as I mentioned, this is more of a conservative option. One thing I wanted to address quickly is that the plan for this draft is to have Sterling for this single game week, and then to bring Bruno Fernandes in next game week for Sterling. So Sterling's going to be purely a 1-week punt. If you watch the Game Week 31 preview, I talked about maybe taking a differential captaincy punt on an Aguero or Sterling this week, and I honestly can't see myself not captaining a Man City player. So you'll see this draft includes Sterling, which makes it a little bit more conservative, and then the next draft is a little bit more differential, and I went for Aguero. So these are the 2 drafts that I'm kind of pondering. Let me know in the comments down below your wildcard draft and which of these 2 drafts you think that I should go for. So starting off in goal, we've gone for Forster. Who's going to be a mainstay in most wildcard teams just because he is so cheap. We spoke about at that 4.0 mark. From a price point of view, can't get anyone cheaper that plays, and I think although he will get rotated with McCarthy for the majority of games, he should be quite good, and I just wanted a cheap player that has the potential, if maybe a Leno gets injured, for him to come on. We have gone for Leno over Mendy here just because I really needed that budget, and I wanted to kind of squeeze these main hitters in like a Sterling, a Salah, Son and Kane. So unfortunately I've had to go for Leno instead of Mendy. I would have preferred going for Mendy, so maybe this is one of those points where if you guys do have more team value or more of a selling budget than me, you can go for Mendy over Leno. But with Leno, he still has some good fixtures. Arsenal actually have the best fixtures from now to the end of the season, so I've gone for a little bit of a double up in defense there with Holding. Now Holding probably won't play many game weeks, he'll simply just be on my bench, but at 4.2 million, not too much risk there. The same with Amartey. So Amartey is 3.9 million. Apologies if I am butchering that name. Now while I don't think the Leicester fullback will start most games, even at that third centre back position in a back 3, I just think at 3.9 million has the potential if maybe one of their other fullbacks get injured, and their other fullbacks such as Pereira and Castagne have been really injury prone, so maybe there is a chance that Amartey manages to come on and play a couple games. The rest of the midfield, we've gone for Rudiger, Cody and Alexander-Arnold because I wanted a little bit more safety in options that I think will play. The only thing about this draft that might be a little bit worrying is that if Rudiger does get benched and Holding gets benched and then Amartey probably won't play, you're going to be left with only 2 playing defenders. So that could be something that you guys could upgrade. Maybe don't go for Holding, maybe go for a Lowton if you can afford him, as that's a nailed player that probably will start most game weeks. But I think you have to go for a Chelsea defender. I would like to have doubled up, but I simply couldn't afford it. But I've gone for Rudiger here. Played last night against Porto and they managed to keep a clean sheet. So I think that's only going to put more faith in the Chelsea manager, in Rudiger, in terms of playing him for most of the game weeks, as he seems to be one of the most nailed centre backs. I just kind of hope that Rudiger does play most game weeks, because I think that Chelsea defence from now to the end of the season is one of the best defences to own. I've gone for Connor Cody at 4.8 because Wolves have some lovely fixtures and he is probably one of the most nailed Wolves defenders to own. Although Willy Bolly is out with that injury, which seems to have affected them quite a bit, I'm just kind of hoping that maybe he comes back in a shorter time than expected and hopefully shores up that Wolves defence. But as I said, 4.8 4.8 for a nailed player with those lovely fixtures. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Then finally, we've managed to squeeze Alexander-Arnold in here, and that might be the reason why I'm struggling with the defensive budget as well. I could maybe downgrade Alexander-Arnold to someone like a Nat Phillips at 4.0 million. Really good value there if you're just hoping for some clean sheets. I think from an attacking point of view, not going to offer you too much, but then you offer that upside chasing of Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I had to bite at it. So 7.3 is really expensive for a defender, so I might still ponder this up until that deadline, whether to go with Trent or whether to go for maybe a cheaper Phillips and then upgrade my defense. But I just think from an upside point of view, as I mentioned, Trent has it all in his locker. The midfield department is stacked to the T. We've got Salah, Son, Neto, Sterling, and then also Diego Jota. So Diego Jota and Salah will be mainstays in my squad from now to the end of the season, just because of those lovely Liverpool fixtures. And I think that Liverpool have to play a strong starting 11. Not only don't they have good options on the bench, but they're also trying to chase for that top 4 spot. And with the loss against Real Madrid in the first leg, the confidence isn't going to be that high for them to qualify, so they might just have to focus on the Prem, and that might not be a problem for us as FPL managers. Then finally, Son, I think you have to go for Son because of that double game week coming up. I don't really want to use a transfer to bring Son in. And then also from game week 34 onwards, Spurs have great fixtures, so I think that Spurs double up is going to be quite profitable. We also got Neto. He has a little bit of a differential. You might be arguing that I should go for someone like a Lingard, but I am more of a fixture FPL manager, so with those lovely Wolves fixtures, I had to kind of go for one of their attackers. And if you're going to go for a Wolves attacker, you might as well go for Neto because the others aren't really returning, and right now there is a little bit of rotation in that front line. Then finally, Sterling, who will be our captain if we do go for this draft. I just think that Man City game is too hard to ignore from a captaincy point of view, and if you look at the ownership of a lot of Man City options, they're quite lowly owned. I'm not talking about your Kevin De Bruyne's, those sort of players, because I think those players might be rotated, and if Sterling doesn't start 3 games in a row, I think that match fitness is going to come back to bite him later in the season. So I'm just kind of hoping that he manages to start in this one, and I think most people generally do predict that Sterling will play. Now, whether he actually gets points is another story. He hasn't been in great form recently, so I think in terms of that shooting ability, it's not looking too great from Sterling's point of view, but it is against Leeds, so I'm pretty sure you'll get a lot of chances. Then finally in the front line, going to start off with Davis, so just kind of a cheap option there at 4.2 million. Won't probably start him too much, but Iheanacho and Kane will be my 2 strikers, and this formation will probably be a 3-5-2 if you guys wanted to kind of figure out what formation I was kind of looking at. With Iheanacho, I think that you have to look at him, just we spoke about in that Game Week 31 preview. I'll leave the link down in the description below if you guys want me to go more in depth into that analysis, because I did a Vardy versus Iheanacho debate. A little bit of a summary on that video. Iheanacho just comes out better in terms of the stats and also because of the price. Basically half the price of Jamie Vardy, so it's a little bit hard to ignore him. So I definitely will be looking at him, and that's why I've gone for Iheanacho and Harry Kane here, as Harry Kane going to be my captain next game week with that lovely double coming up. So this is the more conservative draft. Let me know down below if you think I could make some rotations here and maybe get a better backline if I do drop Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now let's go and look at the more risky draft that is kind of tempting me a bit. And the reason why this draft is tempting me and why it's actually more of a risky draft is that I haven't included Bruno Fernandes in this draft. So Bruno Fernandes won't be in here. It's not going to be like the last draft where I don't have Bruno Fernandes, but I will bring him in next game week. I can't see myself bringing him in for the foreseeable future or more of the short term. And then unless I catch up some free transfers and maybe do a double switch over there with maybe a minus for it. But with no Bruno Fernandes at about that 60% ownership, that's going to be a massive risk that I have to take if I want to go for the upside chasing on this side. If Bruno Fernandes manages to bang in the next upcoming games, that's going to be absolutely terrible for our rank, and I can see us getting quite a few red arrows if we don't have the Portuguese midfielder. But nevertheless, let's not focus on the negatives, let's go for the positives here. We've got a better stacked defense. I've gone for the triple up on Chelsea. I know you might think I'm absolutely mental after them losing to West Bromwich Albion, but I think that game was more of an anomaly here, and Mendy, Rudiger and Alonso surely will get a clean sheet in the upcoming game week. So that's probably famous last words there if I do go for the Chelsea triple up, but I think with Alonso, looks now to start this weekend against Crystal Palace, and then I can't see him starting next week. I think they'll probably go with Ben Chilwell again, and then Alonso will play the next week in game week 32, and then the fixtures against Brighton. So against Brighton might not be the best triple up to go for, but they do have some nice upcoming fixtures. So with Alonso, I think from an attacking point of view, hopefully he does return and repays the patience we do hold on to him from last game week's only 3 points. Then the rest of the defense is similar to the other draft that I've gone for. Alexander-Arnold and Marty and Holding, those players should rotate quite easily, but yet again, the defensive of considerations happen again. If Alonso and Rudiger get benched, which is probably likely to happen, I've got to rely on Amati and Holding, who I'm not really confident that they're going to be starting every single game week. So that's something that I also am considering. Maybe downgrade one of the other options and then maybe upgrade Holding to a Lowton. I've mentioned Lowton quite a lot, but just because Burnley defenders are quite stereotypical for FPL managers if they want defenders, because they're quite cheap and they usually give good returns. But the defense, it's got some good stacked options here and it makes me quite excited. But then also there's quite a lot of excitement in midfield. The only option that we've downgraded here is instead of going for Sterling / Bruno Fernandes, we now go for Smith Rowe from Arsenal. Now, while he might not start every single game week, I think coming back from that injury, he was looking quite good pre-injury. So I think that Arteta should start him in a couple of games. And that's why I kind of got him in here at 4.2 million. Not too much risk there, but maybe if I manage to free up some other budget, I could go for maybe a Saka or another option. But the front line is where the main action is going to be taking place. Iheanacho and Kane are similar, but then we fit Aguero in the mix. And now I know I'm going to be captaining a player that only has one goal in this season, which could be quite ridiculous, but it is Sergio Aguero. He is on his last legs of his Man City contract. He has announced that he's going to be retiring at the end of the season, so I might as well just go for a punt on him, and I kind of think that he will start this weekend against Leeds. There has been some talk about maybe a Jesus starting in that position and maybe Aguero not, but I still think that they're going to be using Aguero in the Premier League with all these cup competitions that Man City do find themselves in. So I'm kind of hoping, and then if I do get news that Aguero will start, I probably will go for this draft, as it just excites me a little bit more. On a wild card, you always want to have that feeling of excitement, and you don't want to really be that conservative and kind of protect your rank when you're pushing for that top 10k. So this is the draft that's more out there, more risky, but I'm kind of leading towards it a little bit. But let me know in the comments down below. You guys probably hate this draft and you probably think I'm mental for looking at it. I know going without Bruno Fernandes is a massive risk, but it might be a risk that I'm willing to take. Now going on to the current team, and just to point this out, this isn't the current draft that I have. This is just for this price rises and this price drops. So I mentioned this in the preview. If you guys haven't watched the preview, this is the exact same team that I went for. I took out Heung-min Son because he's predicted to drop soon, and then I brought in Jesse Lingard, who potentially could go up in price again. So just take this team, copy it, and I'll let you guys know with the final draft in tomorrow's deadline with Dayvy, where you guys can finally make those transfers after the price rises have happened. But this is basically a wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. As I mentioned, we'll be doing a deadline stream tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Otherwise, drop those wildcard drafts down below. I'm always interested to see what your guys' kind of thinking process is and what team you guys are going to be going for. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.